Sportsmen and women are often faced with uncomfortable situations, such as giving statements to the media, and often the situation becomes a bit awkward and even embarrassing for them. Welcome to a new video. Today we are going to recount some of the most awkward situations between tennis players and reporters, situations that have been very popular with the international press. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to our channel, it's free. Now, let's get started. Rafa Nadal and his opinion on the wage gap between men and women. The tense moment of the press conference that Rafa Nadal gave in the Caja Magica before his debut at the Mutua Madrid Open came when a journalist asked him about the lack of parity in terms of prize money between the men's and women's tours. The tennis player didn't take kindly to being asked again about a subject on which he has spoken out several times. I don't really know. I don't know how it is in football, golf, or modeling. I don't know why women earn more than men in fashion either. They are trick questions, looking for controversy. I try to avoid hypocrisy, and I answer. And sometimes the press is more interested in a headline than in what I really say. Sometimes my words are twisted. I have a mother and a sister, and they are the people I love most in this world. What more would I want than for men and women to be equal and have the same rights? Women earn more money in some jobs and men in others. I would like to reach a point where we are paid not according to our sex, but according to the value of your work, what you are able to sell or generate. Rafa Nadal said. Recall that weeks before this interview had been criticized in this regard by the Argentine tennis player Paula Ormaechea, who, making use of his account in X, wrote, "Sometimes it would be nice that neither opined on the subject. World image, giving this message so we don't advance any further. Dear Rafael, Djokovic and his answer to the question of how much he earns. Djokovic has become the first tennis player to surpass the $160 million mark in earnings from competing outside of sponsorships and advertising contracts. For being in the ATP finals, players receive $320,000 for each win in the group stage, $383,300 for winning in the semifinals, $1,070,000, and for competing in the final, $2,200,400. With the prize money he accumulated at the 2022 tournament in Italy, Djokovic accumulated $162 million. When asked what he thinks about this, the Serbian athlete replied, "I only think in euros and dinars, Serbia's official currency." He was also asked if money was not important when he turned down $100 million to go to another team. His answer was, "Money is not important, a lot of money is important, and $100 million is not enough. Everything is public. People can see how much we are earning. What the media don't write about is all the taxes and other expenses. But that's okay. I can't sit here and talk about money as a problem in my life. I've been very blessed and fortunate, but it comes as a consequence of my tennis and the success I've had, along with my family and my team," Djokovic said. The Serb elaborated further, explaining, "I believe that every euro I've won was through sweat and tears. I don't take anything for granted because I know what it feels like to have zero on the table, 5 family members, war, sanctions. Let's not forget where I come from, what kind of era I grew up in. I know exactly the opposite side, which helps me in life to appreciate more everything I earn." Victoria Azarenka, perplexed by a journalist's question, the Belarusian had an episode with a journalist after her Wimbledon debut. The question was quite inopportune and created an uncomfortable and tense atmosphere in the press conference. Victoria Azarenka was the protagonist of a small episode at Wimbledon in front of the media. After the battle, she won in 3 tough sets against China's Yue Yuan with a final score of 6-4, 5-7, 6-4. A journalist stumped the tennis player when he asked her what the London tournament meant for Russia in cultural terms. The 33-year-old reacted, "You know I'm not Russian, don't you? The journalist rephrased his question in an attempt to get the player's opinion in general terms on how she sees the impact of the event on the Russian country. The Belarusian, however, did not quite know what to say, but in the interest of fairness wanted to answer anyway. Wimbledon is one of the most important tournaments. It always has been, and it's one of the oldest in history. It is an icon. I don't know how they see it in Russia. I'm not Russian, so I don't know how it feels there. Then, in an already uncomfortable atmosphere, Victoria spoke about how she was received by the public. Honestly, it was very nice. The people are very nice. They treated me personally very well. Of course, sometimes some incidents happen, but I felt very well received. They supported me everywhere, and I really appreciate that part. Hearing people cheering for me is also one of the reasons why I play. So it was great, Azarenka revealed. She triumphed in this match, but the awkwardness of the journalist's question clouded her happiness. Hurkacz's surreal press conference. Hubert Hurkacz, Masters 1000 champion for the 2021 season, made his debut at the Monte Carlo tournament. He did it with a victory, coming from behind after being down by a break in the third set. One of the biggest names in tennis today, he could face Djokovic or Sinner in the third round. In theory, he is one of the main attractions for the press present. However, his press conference was absolutely surreal. He did not receive a single question, neither in English nor in Polish, from the journalists. The ATP decided to show it as a curious moment, but he received a lot of criticism on Twitter for it. Zverev's fury at journalist after win over Baez at Roland Garros. The German tennis player stopped the press conference to issue a warning to the reporter who asked the question. Alexander Zverev reached the third round at Roland Garros after beating Argentina's Sebastian Baez. Number 36, 2-6, 4-6, 6-1, 6-2, 75. In a match where the mental issue played a big role in the victory of the German, who was 2 sets down but never gave the duel for lost. In that sense, the questions of the journalists circulated in the press conference afterwards, and it was in one of them when the 25-year-old tennis player was furious with one of them to see that, after asking him a question, he ignored the situation and began to use the mobile phone while he answered. The conditions were very different from the other day, and it was harder for me to get into the match, Sasha began. I knew I had to keep fighting until I found my way, especially in the second set. I knew I wasn't going to win, but I had to improve my rhythm in that set. 4, he replied before pausing. Could you at least look at me while I'm answering? Because you asked the question and you're on your mobile phone. The German reproached the journalist, who seems to have apologized a few seconds later, seeing the astonished and disenchanted face of the tennis player. A journalist asks Andy Murray a sexist question, and he corrects him with a brilliant answer. Wimbledon is being the tournament of surprises. Rafa Nadal lost in the round of 16, although, despite the defeat, he was very kind to his opponent and to the English public. Djokovic had to withdraw through injury in the quarterfinals. Andy Murray, the reigning champion of the tournament, was also eliminated in the quarterfinals. The current world number 1 lost to American Sam Querrey 3-6, 6-4, 6-7, 4, 6-1, 6-1, and 6-1. However, despite the disappointment, the Briton was the star of the post-match press conference. Basically, because he made some statements that have earned him the applause of thousands of internet users. In the middle of the interview, a journalist asked him this question. Sam is the first American tennis player to reach the semi-finals of a Grand Slam since 2009. How would you describe? At that point, Murray interrupted him and corrected him. Male tennis player. I beg your pardon, the reporter said, to which Murray said again, male tennis player. And it was then that the reporter realized what a mistake he had made in phrasing the question. The first male tennis player, that's for sure. Then he laughed uncomfortably, while Murray kept a straight face. Rafa Nadal faces a journalist who relates a defeat to his wedding. Are you really asking me this? Nadal whispered to the journalist to charge afterwards against him and move on to the questions in Spanish. That's shit. Tired, between laughter but angry. Rafa Nadal has answered a journalist who was asking him an intricate question about his personal life. the tennis player has lost to Alexander Zverev in his first match of the London Masters Cup, with King John Charles among the audience, by the way, and a journalist in the middle of a press conference asked him, "Has marriage made you less focused on tennis?" The champion, who has just returned to number one, did not give credit to the question. King Juan Carlos, in a match of Rafa Nadal Sports, journalists who often attend Nadal's press meetings know that he deeply discourages talking about his private life. Not even a few days after his wedding with Mary Perello, known as Žižka for a long time, gave the slightest sign of his mood. Few dared to ask the members of their team, and those who did so received a request for silence in response. Nadal does not tolerate his private affairs interfering in his closed tennis world, and any attempt to put that into question takes him out of his boxes. Personal questions never appear on the press rounds of their parties. Never. Until this time. That was the case at the last press meeting. "Are you really asking me this?" replied an indignant Nadal. "Is that a serious question or a joke?" "All right, I'm surprised," he replied to the laughter of the press room, laughing nervously and complacent to the tennis player, because they imagined that a referee was coming. "It's a big surprise for me that you asked me this after having been with the same woman for 15 years, having a very stable and normal life. It doesn't matter if you put a ring on a finger or not. At least personally, I'm a normal boy." When the tennis player doesn't like a question, he counterattacks. It's his way of playing tennis and his way to be with the press. "Maybe for you. How many years have you been married?" asked the already sweaty journalist. 30. "I don't know. I do not remember," replied the journalist. "Ah, yeah, maybe that's why. Okay, let's go to Spanish because that's a bullshit, he said in English. Thank you very much. We're at the end of this video. Tell us your opinion in the comment box. If you like the video, subscribe, and don't forget to give it to the bell to avoid missing upcoming videos like this one. See you next time.